Welcome to the Renovli Room Editor tutorial. In this video, I will walk through the steps of editing the flooring of your room. So to begin, let's click the Edit Flooring tab right here. Our first step is to mark the floor of the image. We do this by hovering over the floor and clicking and dragging, like this, to select the region which is the floor. Now these markings do not need to be continuous, they can be disjoint line segments. What is important about this stage is to make sure that we only mark the floor. Our results will be skewed if we mark the back. So let's say we make a mistake like this and we accidentally mark the back. We can clear the markings we've made thus far by pressing the Clear Markings button here. Once we've cleared those markings, we can begin marking again, and this time let's mark the floor correctly. Once we feel we've marked the region which is the floor, we are done and ready to move on to the next step, which is marking the background. So we simply do that by pressing Next Step right here. Now that we've marked the floor, let's mark the background. The background is basically the region which is not the floor. For the best results, we want to highlight the areas which are not the floor but are closest to the floor. So just like marking the floor, we simply click and drag, and again, these don't need to be continuous markings. They can be disjoint line segments. Like as in the floor markings, if we make a mistake, let's say I highlight something like this, we can clear these markings by pressing Clear Markings, and we can start all over. We can start over like this. And once we feel as if we have successfully highlighted the background, we can proceed to the next step, which is the grid alignment. The point of this step is to obtain the perspective of the floor in the image. Based on our floor and background markings, our software will output an image with yellow markings. And as we can see here, although it is covered by this grid, we can see that some of the countertop is highlighted in yellow. And a yellow highlight means that the software is detecting a floor. So this is of course incorrect, and we can correct this by clicking on the previous button, and this will take us back to the background selection. And if we press previous again, it will take us back to the flooring selection. So the reason we're going back is because we want to correct our markings that we've made. We feel as if the floor markings are all right, although I can slightly better them, maybe do markings like this. But I believe the real issue is in the background selection, and we see this is a problematic region, so we can just simply cover up and highlight that region. So hopefully the software detects that that is not in fact the floor, and that is actually a part of the background. So just to be safe, we'll mark that like that. Again, if we want to clear any of the markings, we can again do so, but for now, we'll leave it as is, as this shall be good enough. So to see how the software reacts to these markings, let's press Next. And now we see that that region is no longer highlighted in yellow. So now let's start aligning the grid. The whole point of aligning the grid is so that we can get the perspective of the floor. And basically we drag the corners of this grid. We can move the center like this. And we want to use anything in the image as a basis. So either the floor, the corners, the sides, or if there's an object in the image, such as in this case an island, we can use it as a frame of reference to align the grid successfully. Now the grid does not need to highlight over the entire region. Again, it is just used to find a perspective. So it can be slightly smaller like this. And we can see that this seems to successfully obtain the perspective. Again, sometimes you have to adjust the grid so that it may look cut off. If it's cut off, that's no problem. Our software can detect that. However, we don't need to cover the entire region. So if it's easier, let's just contain the grid within the image. Once we feel as if we have selected the perspective correctly, we're done, and we can click Next to move on to the next section. At this stage, we've marked the floor, we've marked the background, and we've obtained the perspective of the floor. So we can begin displaying how products will look like on the floor by clicking on options in this palette. And this palette will display products based on what we have selected. So we have hardwood, carpet, tile as options. And if we choose carpet and if we choose tile, different products will show up. So let's go back to hardwood, and we want to see how our image will look with this product. So we click one of the products, and this is the lock fold maple, and we see that there's a projection. Now, one thing that we see is that there's an incorrect selection here. We can always go back again and mark that region as part of the background so that the software doesn't detect it. And we can go back, readjust the grid, and once we readjust the grid, we're ready to see how the products will look like on the image once again. So we go back, and now we can begin choosing once again. Now the great thing is, once we've displayed an image, we can see where the product is available at by clicking at the Available at Retailers button, which will link us to an external link to the product. So at this stage, we can go around choosing multiple options, playing with the palette, seeing different floor types, and all we have to do is click and it'll display it on our image. It's that simple. We can go to tiles, we can see how it'll look like with tiles, and we can see how it'll look like with carpet. Again, it's that simple, it's that easy, and hopefully this tutorial has been helpful, and we hope you enjoy the product.